Good morning. How's everyone doing? All right. So on today's panel, one thing is not like the others. That's me. And how I'm different from the rest of the people that are on the panel is I am a researcher. I'm a professor. I'm a tenured faculty member. I'm a scientist. And I'm not involved in economic development, and I'm going to talk about my research and research that's done in entrepreneurship. That this is an academic conference that's on creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship, and it's somewhat surprising to me that I might be the only person on the faculty who's actually studying academic entrepreneurship as a researcher, but here I am anyway. And they didn't know where to put me, so they put me here in the middle of this. And I was a little bit nervous about what was I going to do, and on Sunday, the first day, Liz Lerman had us do this feedback session. If you were here for that, she had us talk to a partner. So I have to give a shout out to Dirk, who actually convinced me to change some of my slides and actually collect some additional data. Because he said, as a researcher, I said, I'm not going to really talk about University of Tennessee. I give a shout out to Taylor Amy and our IACME $250 million, 250 organization grant. That's the paid commercial of cool stuff going at Tennessee, but I'm not going to really talk about that. I want to talk about the research. What do we know about faculty getting engaged in academic entrepreneurship and specifically not getting engaged, and how do you overcome those barriers based on solid research? And he gave me some positive feedback. He followed the rules well, and he said, you know, if you can give us some information about our own schools, that can maybe be useful to us. So I promise I'll get back to startups and academic entrepreneurs in a minute. But I thought, okay, it's now Sunday night. Where am I going to get data on SEC schools that might be of interest to this group? And I thought, well, I can get on LinkedIn, and I can find out how important is entrepreneurship to your alumni base. And so what I did was I looked at all 14 SEC schools, and I looked at the number of your alumni on LinkedIn who are saying that they're engaged in entrepreneurship, and I looked at also just the gray hairs. And the reason why I looked at the gray hairs is what we know about entrepreneurship is of people who found their own companies, about 17% are founded by people under the age of 30. The vast majority of companies are founded by people in their 40s and 50s. So I wanted to know what percentage of our alumni are engaged in entrepreneurship. So this is the data. It's probably a little bit of an eye chart, but it's in alphabetical order if you want to figure it out. And there's 90,000 of our alumni from the SEC across the 14 schools that are engaged in entrepreneurship that have a LinkedIn profile, and they say they're engaged in entrepreneurship. And if you look across all of our alumni, entrepreneurship ranks as 4th, 5th, or 6th of what they do professionally. If you look at the gray hairs, the ones who are in their 40s and 50s, we're number 1. Entrepreneurship is not the number 1 thing that our older alumni are engaged in, except for Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. It turns out Vanderbilt has the number 1 education school in the United States, and education is the number 1 thing their alumni, even their older alumni, are engaged in. For the rest of the SEC, our alums become entrepreneurs. So just want to leave you with that thought of maybe we need to think about that, and what are we training people to be and do in their careers. So that's my looking at the alumni. I will talk a little bit about the University of Tennessee just as an example of our mission. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we're hearing from all the speakers that we want to involve people in entrepreneurship. We want to serve the people. We want to do this outreach and so on. There's some research out of the Kauffman Foundation. One of the theories about entrepreneurship was that just having a research institution or R1 school in your midst is going to have tremendous economic impact and really impact the amount of entrepreneurship and technology entrepreneurship in a region. That was a theory. And you looked at Silicon Valley, you looked at Boston, you said, well, it must be true. A lot of our universities were saying, we're an R1 research institution, we're having this impact. That Dane Kaufman Foundation, they actually did research and found out it's not true. Having an R1 has really no effect whatsoever on your economic development. What does have an impact from a university standpoint is having an entrepreneurial university. An entrepreneurial university is one that is actively engaged with corporations, actively engaged with inventions that are being commercialized, and engaging in lots of different ways in commercialization of technology and helping universities. And so this is one of the reasons why we're saying we've got to infuse entrepreneurship throughout the culture. And Don Miller, who was talking from NSF, he's talking about engaging, changing the culture of the university to be an entrepreneurial university. That's because we know those are the universities that have economic impact on their states. I'm also in the Haslam College of Business, and guess what? We want to serve the citizens and business of Tennessee and beyond. So we're aligned, we're trying to do that, but we're still kind of research, teaching, and service is the main thing we talk about. And then I'm the research director of the Anderson Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And our mission is there. I'm not going to read it all to you, but developing student and faculty entrepreneurial skills to help them successfully start and grow new businesses. So we're more focused on the entrepreneurship part, but also somewhat of innovation. And there's two things that we do particularly well. One picture is one of my colleagues teaching an entrepreneurship classroom overflowing with students. And from talking over the last 2 days, this is happening on all of our campus. Our students are just absolutely flocking to the entrepreneurship classes. Ours are full. If you know anybody, you've got a doctoral student or you know someone who's interested, we're hiring 2 people. One's a clinical professor, one's a research professor in the area of entrepreneurship to teach entrepreneurship so we can increase our capacity. The demand is there. The other picture, and it's a shout out to Jason over there, he's on one of these motorcycles. We fund research. We fund research in entrepreneurship through our center, in addition to serving businesses and students, because we want to help entrepreneurs be better at what they're doing. And some of my research is looking at academic entrepreneurs to help universities do a better job of creating academic entrepreneurs. So we know that our alumni are jazzed about entrepreneurship. They're going to be entrepreneurs. That's the number one thing they're going to be at some point in their career is entrepreneurs. We know our students are jazzed about entrepreneurship. What about our research faculty? Not so much. The percentage of faculty who are engaged in entrepreneurship is very, very small. And we did hear a number of speakers over the last few days who say, well, that's okay. If some don't want to do it, it's all right. And that's true. There'll always be some researchers who are pure researchers and don't want to do it. But if you talk to people one-on-one, this is a big problem. A Research One institution has no effect on the economic development of the region. An entrepreneurial university has a huge impact on the economic development. So to be an entrepreneurial university, you need a critical mass of faculty who are involved. So what's the motivation? I've talked about that some. Why do we want these STEM professors to be involved in academic entrepreneurship? And my definition is up here. Some people think of academic entrepreneurship as only doing startups. Yesterday, we had a speaker who said any innovation that any faculty member does is academic entrepreneurship. I'm kind of in the middle. So academic entrepreneurship, to me, is it's startups, but it's engagements with companies. It's joint appointments in firms and academic departments. It's university-based venture funds, all those kinds of things as part of my definition of this. So what do we want it? Our funding agencies are demanding it. Why are funding agencies demanding it? Why does Don Miller come here and talk about I-Corps? Well, all NSF grants now require you to put in what are the broader societal impacts. The National Institute of Health makes you put in to your grant proposal what are the broader societal impacts. Why are they doing that? Because taxpayers are demanding a return on investment on this federal funded money. They want to know, what are we getting out of it? We don't want you to just invent things. We want you to invent useful things, and one way that things are useful is when they're commercializable and end up out in the marketplace. So because they want that return on investment, the federal agencies are demanding it and also training academics to become entrepreneurs. I'm not going to talk a lot about the university incentives because a lot of people have talked about this. Our other funding sources are going away. We're looking at, can licensing fees be a positive? Turns out for most schools that licensing fees are kind of like the football team. If you've got a really great football team, you're going to have a positive return on investment. But if you're in a lesser conference, lesser than the SEC, and your team's not very good, you're actually going to lose money on your athletic department. So you have to have another reason to want to have athletics and just making money. Same thing with licensing. Most schools are not making money on licensing. They would like to at least break even, if not make some money. Another reason to create more academic entrepreneurs. And universities want to play this bigger role in improving economic development. So there's a lot of alignment of those incentives, but yet we're not doing as good a job as we possibly could do. And so there's research. There's a lot of research. This isn't my research, that has said, well, what are the factors that are barriers that are preventing faculty from being involved in this? The first are what we call institutional factors, and I don't mean the institution like the university. I mean institutions that are broader than any one university. So this is the fields of study are one of the biggest institutions, and some fields of studies, like computer science and biotechnology, encourage it. The norms of their fields are that you can be involved in academic entrepreneurship. Other factors that hinder academic entrepreneurship are organizational factors. We've heard a lot about tenure and promotion. We haven't heard much about the norms and the stories that get told, but lots of schools that I've talked to, deans will tell you the story about the faculty member who was either an assistant or an associate professor who got involved in this business and then failed to get tenured, failed to get promoted to full, failed to bring in the big federal grants, and those are the things that really, really matter. Well, those stories and norms tell you this is a scary thing, stay away from it. And the number one organizational factor that will determine whether faculty will be involved in academic entrepreneurship is the department head truly supportive of this? Not is the dean, not is the institutional office, not if the provost is, but the department chair. That's the organizational factor that matters the most. But these are actually small percentage explaining the variance in involvement of faculty in academic entrepreneurship. By far, the biggest factor is individual factors, individual differences in the scientists themselves. For example, what motivates them and what do they think about academic entrepreneurship, and is this something that's for them? So what do you think the average scientist at a university thinks about academic entrepreneurship? Not much. This is not for them. Our alumni are jazzed, our students are jazzed, they're not really jazzed. This is where my research comes in. My research is about identity and what do people think about themselves. Identity, personal identity is who am I, why am I valuable, what's my purpose in life? And for most people, A big part of their identity is their profession. I'm a manager, I'm a lawyer, I'm a singer. Those things matter to people and who their personal identity is. In the United States, entrepreneurship is celebrated. You can go back hundreds of years in literature and stories about industrialists and how they forged this company. They're some of the heroes of the United States, are entrepreneurs. Today, entrepreneur is one of the highest respected professions. To be a small business owner is a positive thing. To be part of big business, there's mixed reviews on that. To be a politician, not good. So that's a positive thing. Entrepreneurship is a very positive identity that many, many Americans want to have. What about research scientists? Well, we heard the stats in many STEM disciplines where 50 to 75% of our doctoral students do not go on to work in academia. They go work in industry. They're the ones who say industry is good, making money is good. The minority that stay in universities, what they say about entrepreneurship is, it is not me. I am a scientist. And in fact, it's not just it's not me. When I talk to scientists, to them, I have to get over the business school. Oh, you're in the business school faculty. You know, scientists are up here, business school faculty are down there with STEM discipline people. When I start talking to them about entrepreneurs, those are people who care a lot about money. They're not the pure of heart like me. They're not the people who are trying to do basic research like me. So when we tell them we want them to be academic entrepreneurs, we're telling them, we want you to rip out part of your heart of being a scientist and become this thing that you don't like and that you don't value. And this can be pretty gut-wrenching, and that's why you often get this reaction of, I don't want to do that. And in fact, many universities have learned when they put in incentives that are financial incentives, that sometimes makes them go even more, I don't want to do that because that's not me. If I wanted the financial incentives, I would have gone to work in industry in the first place. So it's something to think about. So what can universities do based on the research that I and other people have done on entrepreneurship? One is recruiting, that you can recruit for people who are interested in academic entrepreneurship, that plus want to do research, teaching, and service. And I know many of our universities are starting to recruit for that and making it part of how they recruit scientists. Including entrepreneurship training in doctoral and postdoctoral. We have a thing called the Bredesen Scholars. It's an interdisciplinary STEM discipline PhD program in conjunction with Oak Ridge National Lab. There's about 120, I think, doctoral students in that program. They're all required to either take public policy or entrepreneurship, and it becomes part of their training. So it becomes part of their professional identity. Our professional identities are very highly, for scientists, highly imprinted while you're a doctoral student. So it's important to get that training in there. France has gone further. The country of France is requiring all STEM discipline doctoral students in the entire country to take an entrepreneurship class. The third point is to celebrate academic entrepreneurship scientists as the best exemplars as scientists. The stories we've been telling and deans have been telling is about how this can hurt you and ruin your career and derail your career. And we don't tell enough stories about those star scientists who also are academic entrepreneurs and were fully great scientists and also fully great academic entrepreneurs. This is part of why biotechnology, academic entrepreneurship is really quite common. Many of their star scientists are involved in academic entrepreneurship. And then the third, or the fourth, is really what I-Corps is doing, which is finding ways for scientists to be involved in startups and entrepreneurial activities without actually really becoming the entrepreneur. And that's, I don't have time to really go into talking about that program, but it's It's a way to say you can kind of get your toe wet. You can still be the technology person. You can be the scientist involved. But it's okay. You're working with others without fully putting on that new and devalued entrepreneurship name. So with that, thank you for the attention. There's nothing subtle about Tennessee and our orange, so I'm for that, but I also want to give a shout out to all the SEC schools here, and thank you for your attention. I can entertain some questions.
Hi, Rhonda. Thanks.
Yeah.
I really like what you had to say. One of the things that I've been at a few universities, and I'm in the College of Medicine, so I see a lot of scientists with great ideas, and they want to be entrepreneurial. But my experience with every university I've been with is like they come to me because my doctorate's in business. I don't know how to do a budget. I don't know how to do a business plan. The school doesn't provide those services to these would-be entrepreneurs. How do you guys address that?
So the Bredesen Scholar Program is, I think, the best way that we're doing this, because we're finding also that even though we have this, part of our mission of the Anderson Center is to help with these entrepreneurial kinds of things and entrepreneurial skills like budgeting and so forth. In general, the scientists do not want to come to us. So they'll come to us on one-on-one, and we're doing, one-on-one advising with them. We also, on Sundays, I think Stacy Patterson talked to the group, and we partner with an organization called Tech 2020 that will provide one-on-one kinds of help to help start businesses for scientists. But the more important thing, I think, is what we're doing with our Bredesen scholars, because they are required to take entrepreneurship or public policy, so they have a choice, but a large number of them are taking entrepreneurship classes, and to get a minor in entrepreneurship, not just one class, so that they do have those skills. I also want to a little bit push back on they don't know how to do budgeting, because this is the other point that transformation thinking about, scientists will tell me, I'm not an entrepreneur. And then I find out, well, you're actually running a lab with a multi-million-dollar budget, and you've got 15 to 70 employees that are working in your lab, and you're writing grants with budgets that, oh my gosh, how detailed do those have to be, and rules and all that kind of stuff. You are a business person running a small business. You're just putting out publications at the end, not products. But everything else about running a business, most of them already have those skills. They just don't think of them as running the lab as running a small business. Did I answer your question?